Baruch haba, welcome. This is Messianic Moment Ministries. I'm Stephen Bruck, and you know who you are on this 22nd day of January 2021, and we continue in our Parsha reading this weekend as there are more plagues sent against Egypt. God now sends locusts and 3 days of darkness, and the final and most terrible plague, the death of the firstborn. Now, before the angel of death passes, Pharaoh tells Moses that the next time Moses sees his face, he will die. And Moses says, hey, that's fine with me. But he tells Pharaoh that since Pharaoh has changed his mind all these times and still refuses to let the Israelites go, the final plague will be the death of all the firstborn of Egypt, from the lowliest animal to the son of Pharaoh himself. Now, God gives Moses the instructions regarding the lamb's blood and how the Seder is to be performed. He tells Moses that this is now the first day of their year from now on, and that when they leave, they are to ask for jewels and valuables from the Egyptians, who were more than happy to give them so long as the people would leave. After the firstborn die, and Pharaoh tells Moses that all the people and all they have are to leave his land, God tells Moses that from now on, every firstborn child or animal is to belong to God as redemption for all the firstborn that God took away from the Egyptians. And later we'll see that this redemption was made through a tax. Now, I want to talk about how God kept his word to Moses when in Exodus 12:12 he said he would bring judgment on all the gods of Pharaoh as well as all the gods of Egypt as well as the Pharaoh. But as I read through the Parsha, something kind of hit me, something else, and I'm going to talk about that. But first, it's really interesting to see how God judged the false gods through these plagues. So some of you may already know this, so I'm going to present it very quickly, just for those who aren't familiar maybe with all the many gods the Egyptians had worshipped. Now, there was Ra, sometimes called Atum, and he was the god of the sun. So, of course, he was judged through the darkness. Osiris was a goddess, a very powerful one. One of the things she was in charge of was agriculture. Well, she was judged by the locusts. Seth was the god of storms, and of course hail set him off. Geb was a snake-headed god of snakes, and Moses' staff, of course, eating up the snakes of the Egyptians. Apis is the god of cattle, and also a god of the Nile. And of course the Nile turns to blood, and there was the cattle blight, which he couldn't stop. Hequet was a frog-headed goddess. Well, she couldn't do anything about the frogs. Isis, another very powerful goddess, was basically also to help protect people from diseases, but she didn't do anything about the boils. And Anubis, the god of the underworld and death, well, he couldn't reverse the death of the firstborn. And pardon me if I've mispronounced any of these. I don't know the exact correct pronunciations. And of course, Pharaoh. Pharaoh is divinely empowered to protect everyone and to maintain order. Well, all the plagues showed he didn't have any power at all against the God of Israel. So as you can see, these gods of the Egyptian polytheistic religion were, in one way or another, shown to be less powerful than the God of the Israelites. Now that's interesting, and it's good study value, but there's something, as like I mentioned earlier, that I really want to talk about. And I find this to be more of a spiritual message in what God told the Israelites to do, specifically regarding the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is called Hag HaMotzot. Now, as most of us know, chametz, which is leavening, represents sin. And the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins on the night of the Seder, lasting 7 days. And 7, the number of completion, is also a special number with regards to the cleansing rituals, which we will find described later in the book of Leviticus. And it tells us there that when becoming unclean due to, well, you could become unclean due to a discharge, or a woman after her time of nidah, which is the menstrual cycle, or a skin disease that you might have had called sarat that might have cleared up. Well, the waiting period from the time of your being unclean or it happening until you would be able to be declared clean, which was after being inspected by the Cohen, that waiting period is 7 days. See, I believe God decreed Hag Hamatzot to last 7 days because it is representative of the people being cleansed of the sin of Egypt that was on them all. For many of them had adopted the Egyptian lifestyle, the diet, even their religion. Now, this shouldn't be a big surprise because, after all, they had been slaves for 400 years. But still in all, now they were being brought back into a relationship with the God of their fathers. And he didn't want any of the spiritual stench of slavery on them. By removing the chametz from their diet, they were undergoing both a physical and spiritual cleansing of the sin that they had become accustomed to while in Egypt. Now, the Passover sacrifice is a thanksgiving sacrifice. It's not a sin sacrifice. And the purpose of this type of sacrifice is to bring us back into a relationship with God. Well, the fasting of anything with chametz cleanses us spiritually as well as physically, so that our communion can be complete. Now, Passover is coming around again. And when you have your Seder and spend the next week eating matzah brai or matzah sandwiches or whatever other matzah recipes, my favorite, I just take plain matzah, spread butter on it and salt that, and oh, it's so good. I could go through a whole box. Anyway, remember during that you are not just obeying God, but you are cleansing yourself both physically and spiritually of chametz. So, one last thought, by the way. Generally, before the Seder, in the Jewish homes, the rabbi will inspect the home to ensure that all the chametz is removed. And that kind of reminds me of, again, with the cleansing ritual, the Kohen's inspection before someone was allowed back into the camp. Well, that's it. So thank you for being here. And please don't forget to subscribe. Click the icon here and subscribe on YouTube. Go back to the website, click the subscribe button in the margin there because they're two different lists. And it just means you'll get notified when I post. Please share these messages with everyone you know. Help this ministry to grow. And you might even want to buy my books, because if you like what you hear, you're going to like the books. And also, don't forget that I always welcome your comments. So until next time, Lehi Trot and Shabbat Shalom.